How you doing, guys? Dr. Thompson here with Exemplify Health Center, your Wellness Way affiliate in Yorkville, Illinois. Happy Saturday, guys. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. I myself enjoyed food for the first time in 6 days. I had a meal for the first time last night. So 6 days of a water fast, and it was pretty interesting. So I'd let you guys, if you guys follow me on Dr. Nathan Thompson, you'll see what I did throughout the entire 6 days. Still worked out. Didn't have a ton of energy, but I'm certainly glad that I was able to go through it and able to do it. So no questions today on if you should do it or not. That is a time for another discussion. So guys, I wanted to go over a couple of things with you today. If you didn't hear the current news, I'm going to talk to you about the FDA authorizing the booster shot. I'm going to go to the FDA or to the actual CDC, FDA CDC. And I'm going to go over with you the research behind it. And I'm going to go over with you, if you go to the actual website, it's going to leave you obviously shaking your head. So while I wait for some people to jump on, while we do that, I want to show you something really interesting. Let's see if I can bring up my other screen, and I'm going to bring it up just like this. Okay, guys, I want to show you something. This is actually a pretty young person, multiple rounds of antibiotics, gastrointestinal issues, actually some issues with eyesight as well. And we had taken some x-rays today to address a couple of things. One of the things that we want to address is, well, you can see there's a scoliosis going on, but I want to show you something because this child has a lot of gastrointestinal issues. And I want to show you, we actually turn the x-ray around. So right is right, left is left. So his stomach right there. So when you look at that, look at how big his stomach is. That stomach is swollen. Holy cow. And then you look over here and you look at some more bowel gas here, more bowel gas over here. Here's some more bowel gas. So I asked him about that. And this child has been on so many rounds of antibiotics. But what's interesting is he's got tremendous amount of belly bloating, got a lot of issues taking place with the sinus issues all the time. And usually one of the issues is when there's been a lot of antibiotics in the past is that kids, adults, they can start developing some small intestinal bacterial overgrowths. They'll also have some issues with yeast. And then you feed it a bunch of sugar, and guess what happens? When that happens, start getting a lot of yeast overgrowth. And when that starts to happen too, you'll eat sugar and you'll get a lot of bloating and things like that. So this little boy's stomach is very swollen, very swollen. But the good news is we're going to be testing his foods. We're going to be testing for stool, for a 3-day stool, and look inside and see what's going on in there. So something interesting I wanted to share with you. All right. Hey, guys, let me know where you're watching from as well. And I want to go over with you this whole article here from the FDA. And here's what they said. I'm going to show you the screenshot of it so you'll be able to see it. So coronavirus COVID-19 update. The FDA expands eligibility for COVID-19 vaccine boosters. This came out for immediate release yesterday. Okay. So let's walk through this and just see absolutely how crazy that it is. Okay. So here's what they said. Let's see if we can find it here. They authorized it for individuals 65 years of age and older, individuals 18 through 64 years of age at high risk for severe COVID-19, and individuals 18 to 64 years of age with frequent institutional or occupational exposure to SARS-CoV-2. Okay. So here's what they said first and foremost. The FDA has determined that the currently available data supporting expandability of the eligibility of a single booster dose of Moderna or Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccines to individuals 18 years of and older. They streamlined the eligibility criteria, making booster doses available to all individuals 18 years of age will help to eliminate confusion about who may receive a booster dose and ensure booster doses are available to all who need one. So here's the data that is supporting the quote unquote effectiveness of this. Okay. You can't actually make this up. Okay. So for the Moderna vaccine booster dose, the FDA analyzed the immune response data from participants, 149 of them, 18 years of age and older, from the original clinical studies, who received a booster dose at least 6 months after the second dose, compared to the immune responses of 1,055 study participants after completing their 2-dose series. The antibody response against SARS-CoV-2 virus 29 days after a booster dose of the vaccine demonstrated a booster response. All right, so let's look at this, guys. If you are a critical thinker, you're going to think something's weird here, because you mean they only looked at 149 participants. So 149 participants, and they say it demonstrated a booster response. Okay. So 149 equals, it should be recommended clear across the board for potentially maybe 149 million people. You see how that's such a wild extrapolation. But the other thing is they say that it demonstrated a booster response. Well, tell me something. Do you guys have the labs of the people who demonstrated a booster response? What was the booster response? Was it an antibody response? Could you see that there was a antibody response to the Delta variant? What were the B lymphocyte numbers of this person? What was the T cell numbers of this person? CD4, CD8 cell response? What were their natural killer cell response? Or did you just go in and say, booster response, and we can see that there might be an inflammatory response? Does that equal a booster response? So what does it mean? They don't tell you. They just say we took 149 people, compared them to another 1,000, and we saw that there was some kind of booster response. So let's go ahead and potentially give this to hundreds of millions of people in the United States. Okay. Now let's look at not only the Moderna, let's look at the Pfizer one. The Pfizer vaccine booster dose, the FDA analyzed the immune response from approximately 200 participants who received a single booster dose about 6 months after their second dose. The antibody response against SARS-CoV-2 virus 1 month after a booster dose of the vaccine, when compared to the response 1 month after the 2-dose primary series in the same individuals, demonstrated a booster response. Well, tell me how effective that booster response was. Now, I want you to listen to this. So the FDA evaluates the benefits and the risks. So since Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech initially submitted a safety and effectiveness data on a single booster dose following primary vaccination of the FDA to the FDA, additional real-world data have become available on the recently increasing numbers of cases of COVID-19 in the United States and the risk of myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle, and pericarditis, inflammation of the outer lining of the heart following vaccination of these vaccination with these vaccines. These additional data enabled the FDA to assess the benefits and the risks of the use of these vaccines in the general adult population. The FDA has determined that the benefits of a single booster dose of either the Moderna or Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccines outweigh the risks of myocarditis and pericarditis in individuals age 18 years of age and older. So here's what they're saying. They're saying is, well, after doing so many doses, we didn't realize how much there was going to be myocarditis and pericarditis. But when we look back and we look at the data, then the risks always are outweighing, or the benefits are outweighing the risks. Here's the thing. How do you know that the benefits outweigh the risks? Especially when you're only using 149 participants and 200 participants. And then you're actually looking back and looking at the number of cases of myocarditis, pericarditis. And then the other thing is are all of them actually being reported? Just remember, the vaccine adverse event reporting system is wildly underreported. And not only that, what's the difference between something that might be subclinical myocarditis, pericarditis, versus something that is showing a clinical symptoms, that is presenting with clinical symptoms? Because are they actually measuring a person's blood work and inflammatory markers and things like that after a booster? Are they measuring it to see, even is there some kind of subclinical inflammation, some kind of subclinical damage taking place? Because if you're not measuring that there's some kind of possibility of subclinical damage, then who's to say that if there's subclinical damage on the first, maybe there's going to be a little bit more on the second, maybe there's going to be a little bit more on the third, maybe there's going to be even more on the fourth, until finally everyone has some kind of myocarditis and some kind of pericarditis. See, the thing is, guys, is that they don't measure it, and that they're taking a group of 149 and 200 that they're giving boosters to, and then they're wildly recommending it as some kind of panacea for everything. Now, I want to talk to you about something too, because this, and a lot of times people say, well, Dr. Nate, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, you're right. It doesn't make sense, does it? So what is it? Are they that stupid, or are they that corrupt? That's something that you have to consider. So remember how everyone was saying that the actual vaccine, it doesn't prevent Corona-19 or SARS-CoV-2. It doesn't prevent the coronavirus, but it can give you a much more milder dose. So let's just assume that it worked. Let's say there was no side effects, there was no symptoms, that we weren't involving in, some kind of mRNA type vaccine in which there really is no long-term research that has been done. But let's say it had been researched for years. It was 100% safe and effective. Wouldn't it make more sense for those people who are considered high risk, rather than continually having to give a booster every 5 to 6 months, because you guys know it's going to continue for a long, it's never going to end. You're going to be getting a booster every 6 months. And think about it. Who knows how many side effects are actually taking place, because they have no idea. But let's say that the first 1 and 2 doses, let's say that they worked. Okay. Let's say that they worked, that they can't prevent a case, but they can contribute to you having a much more milder case. So let me ask you a question. Wouldn't it make more sense, so that we don't have to continue giving boosters for a person's rest of their life, so that maybe we don't have to give the pharmaceutical companies so much money and have them enjoy so many profits? Because remember, Pfizer is a habitual offender when it comes to illegal marketing, suppressing data, hiding negative outcomes. They have paid billions of dollars in fines. So wouldn't it make more sense then that if it did work, you give a person the 2 doses, and then you then expose them to a natural infection of SARS-CoV-2, give them a much less clinically less symptoms, because they are protected from the vaccine, and then helping them to have a natural infection with less symptoms, and then provide long-term immunity rather than pumping them full of boosters every 5 to 6 months. Wouldn't that make a lot more sense? But it doesn't, because there's no profit that's involved with it. So I want to show you guys something, because over and over again, the science proves that natural infection trumps any kind of infection that can come from any kind of vaccine. This actually comes from the Brownstone Institute. You can go onto brownstone.org, and they keep updating this. It used to be 75, and then I think it went to 92, and now they are up to 128 research studies that affirm that naturally acquired immunity to COVID-19 is better. That is better than any kind of quote unquote vaccine immunity or vaccine antibody response. This is 128. You can go to this website, just type in brownstone.org, and just type in your search engine on DuckDuckGo, research studies, natural immunity, and it'll take you right to that. And this is always getting updated. Every time I go back and check back on it, they add more articles and more research studies to it. But I want to show you something that's really interesting, is that this is one of the articles, okay? SARS-CoV-2 infection induces long-lived bone marrow plasma cells in humans, okay? So here's what they found. They found that long-lived bone marrow plasma cells are a persistent and essential source of protective antibodies Individuals who have recovered from COVID-19 have a substantial lower risk of reinfection with SARS-CoV-2. Okay. Nonetheless, it has been reported that levels of anti-SARS-CoV-2 serum antibodies decrease rapidly in the first few months after infection, raising concerns that long-lived bone marrow plasma cells may not be generated and humoral immunity against SARS-CoV-2 may be short-lived. Okay. But the reality is that they found through this article that what they were telling you, what mainstream media is, what your doctors who were in charge, what they found is saying, we don't know if someone has a natural infection, how long an antibody response actually lasts. What they actually found is that, yes, it lasts a long time. And it lasts now a lot longer than any of the initial 2-dose vaccine and even the booster shot. Okay. So it goes again showing you that science shows that natural infection and natural immunity is always better. Now, guys, this is the thing. You still need an immune system, even for a vaccine to work, or for natural immunity to work. Because remember, even the vaccine requires you to have B lymphocytes in order to produce an antibody response, which means if you don't know what your CD19 cells are, if you have a low amount of those, then you're not going to have an antibody response to a vaccine or to a booster. Does that make sense? Which is why people on immunosuppressants, or people who are immunocompromised, or people who are diabetic, who have insulin resistance, who are on blood pressure medications, who have a low amount of B lymphocytes, it doesn't matter if you get the vaccine or not, because you cannot create something from nothing. Let me say that again. You can't create something from nothing. See, even the vaccines require you to have a sufficient number of immune cells, of B lymphocytes, to be able to make antibodies to quote unquote protect you, which means this is why that even it can be a failure by trying to inject a spike protein and you don't have the B lymphocytes to even make those spike proteins. But not only that, as I've always said, as soon as the spike protein, the tiny protein that you are getting exposed to, all that needs is for that to mutate a little bit, and you have no protection from the quote unquote variant. All it takes is a little bit of mutation. And because you injected just part of the virus, you offer no protection from that vaccine, which means it's going to be booster after booster after booster. And 6 months from now and a year from now, they're going to say there's a new variant. There's a new variant. Get your boosters, get more boosters, and it's never going to end. And this is why when you have a natural infection to the whole virus, it offers protection no matter if there is any kind of mutation of the spike protein. This is why, guys, I can show you a research article that says previous exposure to other types of coronaviruses or cold viruses actually offer great protection against SARS-CoV-2. So, guys, it requires, when you boil it down, it always goes back to your immune response. It always goes back to your immune response. If you have a strong immune response, then you are not going to have any problems with COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2. If you have a weak immune response, then yes, you potentially could. But if you also have a weak immune response, you're not going to react to the boosters, or you're going to react minimally. And so it's still not going to work. And so, guys, it always comes down to this. It always comes down to it's your immune system, and it's how you're working on your immune system. And it's your responsibility to work on your immune system. And that's why one of the things that drives me nuts, is how no one has taken personal responsibility for their health, for their life, for their immune system, to start working on it so that they can make themselves stronger to be able to withstand any environment. So, guys, what do you think? What do you think? So, do you think there's enough research with basically a couple of hundred people to recommend it for everyone as far as booster shots, do you think that natural immunity is better than vaccine induced antibody production? And really, do you think that if you get a natural infection, does it last longer than a quote unquote booster? Because, guys, we have tested people a year and a half, and they, with a natural infection, they still have an antibody count. And we've also tested people who have had the booster and the vaccine, and they have no antibody count to SARS-CoV-2. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? So, guys, I just wanted to share that with you as we head into the weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please share this as well. And guys, always read the articles, okay? Just don't be a headline reader, because when you start looking at and look deeper, you're going to see that a lot of what they're doing doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, start asking the tough questions. So you can't be a headline reader, and you have to start looking a lot deeper. So, guys, I hope you guys enjoy that. Again, please make sure that you share this as well. And coming up next week, we are going to be doing a live video. And right now, one of the things that we're going to be doing is I'm going to talk to you guys about an awesome herb that is coming up, because that I'm going to talk about because of the amount of sugar that we're going to be consuming over the next 6 to 7 weeks. And I'm going to be talking about the research with gymnema. Guys, this is really good. Doesn't mean that you get to eat as much sugar as you want, but I'm going to talk about sugar or gymnema and how it actually blocks sugar, and how it can also provide regeneration to specific cells within the pancreas. This will be really interesting. And again, I'm going to show you research from just October, from just a month ago. All right. All right, guys, be well. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And we'll see you guys very soon for our next live, probably coming up on Monday or Tuesday. Be well.